to Financial Minds Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Jaime Agostino. On this podcast, we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit union professionals need to know about. Today, we are talking about exceptional workplaces and employee engagement with Vizo Financial's Chief Culture Officer, Joe Bertotto. Joe, thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thank you, Jaime. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
So, Joe, Vizo Financial was able to achieve something that the Chiefs were not able to.
Yes.
They won for 3 years now in a row,
Right.
the Gallup Exceptional Workplace Award. Whereas I know you're happy the Chiefs did not win their 3 Super Bowls because
Absolutely.
you are an Eagles fan. So you're happy with that. But congratulations on winning the Gallup Exceptional Workplace Award.
Yeah, thanks, Jaime. Total team effort. But yeah, we're really proud that we were able to do that. I mean, because that's a global honor. So it's not, it's not just limited to a certain area, or geography. So super exciting for us. And we feel really good about it. And we feel good about it. We're proud of the honor, but we're really more proud of how our employees feel about coming to work every day.
All right. So I'm curious, what do you think has been the key to Vizo Financial's consistent success in earning this recognition, this worldwide recognition?
Yeah. So I think it's probably 3 things. One is, I think we make decisions as an organization with the best interest of our employees at heart. So I think for the most part as a company, our decisions are made with our employees' best interest in mind. And I think that creates a tremendous amount of trust, right? And that's foundational to engagement. I also think that we have a dedicated team that works on culture, and most organizations don't. And the sole purpose of why we exist is to try to make sure that people are engaged. So I think that's a really important thing. And then thirdly, I think, when it comes to culture, managers are your linchpin. They're the culture carriers. And we try to do a lot of different things with our managers to make sure that they're engaged, because some of the research is if my manager's engaged as an employee, I'm 59% more likely to be engaged myself. So we're trying to make sure that they're engaged and that they're managing, really in the right way, meeting the needs of employees and balancing that with the needs of the corporate and the needs of our members and just general overall performance. So,
okay. Well, then, walk us through the culture building strategies that have had the biggest impact on the corporate success.
Yeah, I really kind of think it comes down to kind of 3 things again. One is really using our values as anchor points for behavior. Because if everybody is behaving in accordance with our values, you're going to get kind of this same experience no matter who you talk to. Obviously, we're all different, so that will look a little different. But generally, the spirit of it will look the same. So that's one big piece. I think the other big piece is we talk a lot about like strengths and putting people in positions to do the things they're really good at and enjoy, and really thinking about how we individualize to each person, right? So, in a lot of credit unions or a lot of companies, people just put up with each other, right? I work with you because I have to, not necessarily because I want to. And what we try to use our Clifton Strengths assessment for is helping people understand each other so there's greater acceptance and appreciation. And, really almost trying to take it to that next level of admiration. Because if I admire somebody, I'm treating them a whole lot differently than if I don't, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of that second piece, individualizing using our Clifton Strengths assessment. And then the third thing is really working with managers and leaders to think about their actions every day, right? How do I lead in an environment where we're trying to get the best from everybody, right? And we are working so that everybody wants to give their best. They're giving their discretionary effort. So,
okay. Well, employee engagement is a huge part of the Gallup Award criteria.
Yeah.
What initiatives or programs have you put in place to drive exceptional engagement from the staff at Vizo Financial?
Yeah, I think it ties back in many ways to those ideas around trying to make sure our values are being lived. And some of that is really making sure that managers are explaining the values to people, right? Like, I think the data is only 19% of people strongly agree that their manager, kind of explains their company's values in a way that shows them how it influences their work every day. So really trying to use those values, right? And we do that. We have these things, as you know, called service hours. We've been doing them for a pretty long time, 1 hour a month, where we ask people to participate. And we talk about different things, people's strengths, the values of the company, teamwork, personal development, well-being. We cover a variety of topics in those things. And really, that's a way to just keep these things top of mind for people. And the other thing it does is it helps people interact who don't work together. So we have 4 campuses, and these service hours allow people to kind of intermingle among the campuses and departments. So teams that really wouldn't spend a lot of time together, don't work much together, get to interact. They get to know a little bit about another person. And it's a cumulative effect, right? Like, if you just do that one time in a year, it's really not going to have much of an impact. But when you do it every month, 12 months a year, it gets people familiar with each other and gets people to know each other. So I think that has been helpful. The other thing we do, as you know, are the leadership hours. So we do an hour a month around different leadership topics. Again, we've been doing it for a long time. And it's just another way to keep the whole idea of how you manage is so important, because the impact you have on people's lives is significant. And, everybody's busy, right? We've got a lot of work to do. So it's trying to make sure that we're managing in the right way to create that right environment. And that's going to pay off, obviously, for our members, and one of the things we're really proud of with the Gallup Award is it's not only looking at our engagement numbers. It looks at our our member satisfaction numbers, and it looks at some of our financial information, because the whole idea is, right, if people are happy and coming to work every day and they're giving their discretionary effort, it's going to make a difference for the members we serve, and it's going to make a difference in our overall performance as an organization. So, we do these little things as ways to kind of keep people kind of thinking about at least what we feel is important when it comes to a culture of engagement and kind of pulling people together and unifying. Because I think that's the biggest aspect of leadership. If you can get unity, it's powerful when you get 160 some people pulling together in the same direction. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you measure the employee engagement? And then how do you use those results to improve the workplace?
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good point. So we use the Gallup Q12,
Okay.
and we feel like it's the best assessment or survey on the market for a couple reasons. It's very quick. You can literally complete it in 5 minutes, and it's heavily researched. And Gallup continues to do validation studies on these 12 elements of engagement. And they're really universal needs that people have at work. So it's measuring something that ties directly back to engagement based on research. It's easy to complete, and it's actionable at the work unit level. So a team can do something with it. So for our money, kind of the idea of having employees complete a 90-item survey where they can't do much about it, it gives a lot of information that's overwhelming, that maybe doesn't really help the organization move forward. This is pretty focused, and you can work on it as a team. And so that's the beauty. So after the survey, we'll have meetings with teams with the idea, is there anything that you as a team can work on? right? And try to get better. Because it's not so much about raising the numbers, it's about what the numbers raise. So again, the numbers are great, but it's really the focus more on how do people feel every day coming to work, right? Because again, if I feel good, it's all going to work out. It's going to work for us. It's going to work for our members. So, that's the tool we use and why we use it.
Mhm.
And then trying to make sure we have meetings with our teams to talk about the results is really important. Because again, in most companies, you hear a big complaint that, well, we did an employee satisfaction survey, but no one knows what the results were. And then after you do that a couple times, it's like,
Why am I doing this? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, this is pointless.
Yeah.
And we talk about it. I mean, that from your role in our company, what you do with it externally. We have a lot of communication internally about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we try to, again, we use it as a tool really to think about just what do we need to keep doing to create a great workplace for people.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, I know you talked a little bit about the managers and the importance of their role, but also,
Yeah.
what role does senior leadership play in fostering a culture that supports high engagement and well-being?
Yeah, right. It's critical. I mean, they're driving. Typically, the top of an organization is driving. Because if you don't have everybody kind of unified around and rallying around engagement, what you get are pockets of
Yeah.
engagement in an organization. And then it's very hard to kind of maintain that because not everybody's kind of doing the same thing, following the same values. So it gets really hard. So for senior leaders to be engaged is significant. It is almost impossible, in my opinion, to create a fully engaged and highly positive and productive culture without the commitment of the entire senior leadership team. And fortunately, we have that. I think everybody in our senior team sees engagement as a critically important element of what we do. And that's a huge driver because in a lot of credit unions organizations, it's not looked at that way. It's just a nice thing to do. And again, the research kind of points out that it's really the driver of your results. So.
Well, I mean, you're talking a lot about, values. So how do you ensure Vizo Financial's values are communicated and then embraced by every level of the organization from that leadership to the entry level employee?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is really talking about them, right? So a lot is having conversations. So again, some of our service hours, kind of key on the values. What we also try to do is when we have meetings, we will tell a value story. So, the idea is just a brief story about how someone or some people in our organization lived one of the values, whether that's passion for service and helping a member or a coworker, or whether it was the idea of continuing to learn, help show the expertise of this person. And so what that does is that brief story, again, done consistently, gives people kind of an illustration of what that value looks like in action. There's also a hero or heroes in the story so that people are getting recognition. And typically, because it's a good story, it's kind of priming the meeting for a positive start, right? So that's another kind of little action that we take. Of course, when we start many of our like all staff meetings or larger things, as we always have our vision and values in there and talk about them a little bit. So it's those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, it's a lot about the direct manager, right, or senior leader kind of modeling those things, right? And really it works very effectively if managers and senior leaders are not only modeling them, but talking about them. So they're sharing them and helping clarify understanding for people, giving examples. And then it's another level and even better if managers are recognizing people who live the values, right, and coaching people who don't, who violate them. And when you can get that kind of humming across the organization, the values really become embedded in the company. And then when new people join, couple things. So on our onboarding program, we talk a lot about our values, right? And we follow up with our new employees to say, hey, we talk about this culture. Do you see it? And our feedback pretty universally from our new employees is, yeah, this what you talk about on your onboarding program matches what I'm seeing, which is wonderful because that's what we're after, So it's little actions like that, and then bringing people into the company and again, immediately starting to talk about those things and them seeing them in action, then us following up with them in support of the manager, all those things kind of get those values kind of driven home and just become a fabric of a company.
Well, I can kind of see that, culture is it's a journey. It's not a destination. So I'm sure, as companies, they need to make adjustments. So, have you had to make adjustments to the culture strategies in response to the evolving work environment? We've now got remote, we've got hybrid. Have you had to make adjustments for that?
Yeah, we have. So, one of the things that we noticed kind of early on when the pandemic hit and we were remote and we remain, most of the people in the company are fully remote. And I think that's another thing, too, that's a great example of giving people a choice and making decisions in people's best interest. So when the pandemic hit, after that kind of subsided, we surveyed people and said, do you want to work fully remote? Do you want to work hybrid schedule? Do you want to work in office? That survey kind of laid out 78% of people wanted to work fully remote, 12% wanted to work hybrid, and 10% wanted to work on site. And what we kind of found is the people who wanted to work hybrid started to realize, well, there aren't many people in the office when I come in, so I'm just going to work fully remote. So most of our workforce is fully remote. But I think that decision to give people a choice in what they wanted to do was a great example of we make decisions in the best interest of people. So back to your question. Yeah, I mean, because we have so many remote people, it is kind of thinking about, well, how do we connect people? So, we do certain things. Just about 9 months out of the year, we do what we call fun days, which are food, unity, and networking days. And that's really pulling people in. If it's optional, but we buy lunch and we have people come in. We'll have games that people can play interspersed in their work. So it's a way to get people to connect and be together. So that's typically been pretty effective in having people participate. And again, that's optional. So we're not forcing anybody to come in. So we do those. The service hours that I mentioned, we actually had started to do this before 2020, but it just kind of aligned with as soon as we went remote, we were ready to do it because we had gotten the help of our IT staff. But, we do these service hours virtually. And again, the beauty of that is people are getting to interact across campuses and functions where they might not otherwise. And then we've kind of done other things. As we do these things we call connection clubs, but we have one for sports talk. We have a geek gathering. We have a movie club. You do a cooking time one, which is super popular.
I try.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And we appreciate that. So, it's little things like that where people can just get together, and they're small groups of people. But, again, people that might not talk to each other, on a pretty regular basis, like, our CEO and many of our senior people come to the sports talk one. And, we're not a super hierarchical company, but people are talking to them like they would never get that kind of interaction on a regular basis. But every week almost, there's that interaction of, could be 7, 8, 9 people just getting together, talking sports and talking over each other and teasing each other about their teams. And, we just have a blast. And so little things like that, that are highly unusual are things that we do. And then we do educational things too. Like we do one of those around Clifton Strengths. So we do one around strengths. We do one around for leaders. So we do educational ones along with kind of the fun ones as a way to kind of keep people connected, keep people learning, and people getting to know and kind of enjoy each other.
So let's talk about the employees. So from the employees' perspective, what does the Gallup Exceptional Workplace Award mean to the staff, and how did you celebrate the achievement with them?
Yeah. So, I think people probably feel good about it, right? Like there's pride in that. And I think as much as the pride, it's just knowing that the kind of place that you come into or open up your laptop every day, right? Like how that feels. So I think there's always that. It's interesting. We talked about different ways to celebrate, and we want to be careful because we don't want to do things that would skew the results, right? Like, you do something like, okay, everybody gets something, and then it's like, well, I'm going to give high results now because I want that thing again. So we do a couple, pardon me?
I said, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, because the thing we don't want is to skew the results. Like we want the honest opinion of people. So we do small things. So we send a handwritten card. So our senior leaders will send handwritten cards to each employee, kind of thanking them for what they do. And we do that. We set that up in a way that each of those senior leaders is sending a card to somebody not on their team. So they're sending it to different people than they work with. So we do that. And then we do little gifts. Like last year, we sent out a little picture frame with our Vizo logo and "You're Exceptional" on it to kind of tie into our exceptional workplace. And it's amazing to me how many people, when we're on Zoom, have those picture frames on their desk or in their office area. And it's also amazing to me when we send the cards, how many people comment back like, hey, thanks so much for this. And people talk about like having the card on their refrigerator. And I think that to me is amazing that people would take a handwritten card and put it on their wall in their office or on their refrigerator at home. I mean, it just says something about how people feel about the company.
Well, I mean, you always hear that saying about, some of the smallest things have the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can look at that from a family experience, like it's amazing. When my kid actually takes the shoes upstairs, I'm like, oh, it's those little things that just make such an impact that you're just like, oh, yeah. Wow. And so, I could see how a handwritten card, I mean, especially if it's handwritten, people don't do that these days. And so that really can make an impact for people and kind of hit home for them. So
yeah, absolutely.
So what advice would you give to other companies that are looking to build a culture that could help them achieve similar success in the Gallup rankings?
Yeah, I think one of the things is you've got to be like really intentional about this, and it takes effort. As you said, Jaime, I think, we've been at this for a long time. Like it takes work. And, again, culture is such a driver based on research. I mean, not my own biased opinion, which of course it's very biased, but just generally, like all the research will tell you and common sense will tell you when people are giving their discretionary effort at work, they're engaged, they want to do their best work, they're willing to help out where they can, they work through problems and just don't throw their hands up. Like when people do that, your results are going to be better. So, you look at most credit unions, they have a COO or a CFO, right? They have managers of departments. If you can do it, and I know it's not possible everywhere, but the idea of having somebody dedicated to culture within the organization can make a big difference because you need somebody to keep it in front of people, to keep talking about it. So I think that is one thing, if it can be done in a credit union, is can we have somebody that's dedicated to kind of managing this, right? And then I think the other thing is just the intentionality of it and the commitment of the senior organization, because it's kind of what you said, right? The senior leaders in the organization are significant drivers of this. And if everybody's kind of built around it and rallying around it, it's got a greater chance of significant success.
Okay, so what are your plans, to continue to evolve and improve the culture here at Vizo Financial over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to look at like what we do. We conduct focus groups to say, are there things we're missing? Are there things we can do better? And then based on that feedback, we make adjustments. So we made a lot of adjustments to our Foundations of Management program. Gene Heath kind of developed that program and has done a great job facilitating it. And after every session, we get feedback from people. And then based on that, Gene will make enhancements to that program. So we do things like that. Like we started new programs. So one of the things we do now is we have a manager onboarding program. So we typically promote from within. And even if we had a manager join us who was new to the organization and managing people, we have like a 6-month manager onboarding program to really help managers think about, okay, I'm in a different role now, right? I was successful typically at the role I was in as an individual contributor, but now I'm responsible for people. So what does that really mean? How do I manage in the most effective way based on who I am as a person and my natural strengths and talents? What does that mean, right? How I manage people and what do I have to be aware of? What can I build on? So we take people through that program. So we try to make enhancements like that as we go. We look to see based on feedback where we can improve, and if we're missing something, we'll act on it. Or if we just kind of say, hey, we're not doing something that maybe we could do, we'll try it. And we scan the environment. We learn what other people are doing, right? Because genius is many times knowing what to steal, right? So what are other people doing that's really working? So we, like one of the things we did was we did an external mastermind group with a number of our credit unions. And that was basically a peer support group. And we met for 6 months, an hour a month, and shared experiences, shared tools and techniques. And, from that, we took away things that we could do differently or better in our organization, as well as the credit unions who were part of that group. So those are the things we're always looking at.
I'm a big proponent of borrow someone else's idea, but make it your own. Like I do that from a design standpoint as well as other things. So
absolutely.
You got to personalize it.
Absolutely. And that's what we do. And it works. So
yeah. Any final thoughts for our listeners today, Joe?
Yeah, I just think it's a lot about, again, the award is really special, and winning it 3 times is a really special thing. And I think really at the heart of it, it's just, what do people say about Vizo Financial, right? At the end of the day, what do our employees say about our company? And what do we want them to say? So when they're at dinner with their family or they're out with friends, what are they saying about our company? And we want them to say, really good things. We want them to brag about us, and I think every credit union would want that. And so it's really kind of thinking about, can we do this stuff? Can we be intentional? Can we get a champion in our credit union? Can we look at our values and say, if we polled people, do they really even know our values? And so if they don't know them, they're not serving as, kind of anchor points for behavior in the credit union. So they're not useful, right? Right now, only 20% of people strongly agree that their coworkers are committed to their company values. Only 21% kind of strongly agree that they're connected to the culture of their organization. So there's a lot of room, and some of it is visibility, intentionality, having somebody to champion it can make a difference. So,
Well, with that, Vizo Financial's core values, I feel like I have to share them now, Joe. Integrity above all, passion for service, one unified team, and continue to learn. And in the vein of that, continue to learn, today's episode is brought to you by Vizo Financial's webinars, because again, we value continue to learn, whether that's our staff or helping credit union staff. So Vizo Financial offers a lot of webinars. So want some live education that comes to you? Look no farther. Vizo Financial hosts several webinars throughout the year to bring credit unions the training and education they deserve. Look for webinars to cover the foundational components of financial institution operations, featuring expert speakers from Vizo Financial staff as well as partner organizations. And as a bonus, the majority of the webinars are free to all credit union staff, and they are recorded for playback and available on our website. So webinars for the win. As always, thanks so much for listening and make it a great day.
Thanks, Jaime.